فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه ومن سار على سبيله إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So continuing with Manhaj as-salikeen, وصلنا إلى الباب مفسدات الصلاة, the things that nullify the salah. I mentioned تبطل الصلاة, the salah is nullified بترك ركن أو شرط وهو يقدر عليه عمدا أو سهوا أو جهلا إذا لم يأتي به أو بترك واجب عمدا. So mentions of the first reasons why the salah is invalid or nullified is one, by leaving off a pillar of the salah. As we've learned, we have shurut, we have arkan, and we have wajibat. And then we have sunan, like mukammilat, the things that complete the salah in terms of virtue, more reward. Okay? But as for the rukn and the shart has to be in place before the act of worship until the act of worship is complete. The rukn is what the act of worship is built upon. Now, both the condition and the pillar, if they are left off, whether it's intentional, unintentional, or out of forgetfulness, ignorance, the salah is invalid. You have to bring the conditions and the shurut. Sorry, the same thing, and the pillars. You have to bring the shurut wal arkan, i.e. the conditions and the pillars of the salah. As for the wajibat of the salah, then if they are left off intentionally, then the salah is invalid. If a person leaves off the wajibat intentionally, the salah is invalid. If they leave it off out of ignorance or forgetfulness, then the salah is valid. They make sujood al-sahu in its place. واضح? So for example, Ahmad, he started to pray. He said Allahu Akbar, standing up. And then he said Dua al-istiftah, sunnah. And then straight away he said Surah al-Ikhlas. ما حكم صلاته? Invalid? لماذا?
Because he didn't recite Surah Fatiha.
He didn't recite Surah al-Fatiha. لا. لا نتكلم عن خلف الإمام, not about behind the Imam. But by themselves, ماذا قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم؟ من لم يقرأ بأم الكتاب فصلاته خداج 3 مرات. نعم. So that's a pillar of the salah is Surah al-Fatiha. الخلاف بين أهل العلم حكم قراءة الفاتحة خلف الإمام. The ruling of Fatiha behind the Imam. والذي قال الشيخ فوزان حفظه تعالى وهو يعني ما هو أسلم عندي الجمع بين الأمرين أنه لا يقرأ بالفاتحة خلف الإمام في الصلاة الجهرية ولكن يقرأها في الصلاة السرية. نعم. So I mentioned, sorry one second. As he was mentioning, he said you recite Surah al-Fatiha in the salawat that are silent behind the Imam. As for the salawat that are loud, then you don't recite behind the Imam. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. However, if you take the opinion that you have to recite behind the Imam in every salah, then if you don't do it, then your salah is not valid. Now, or that rak'ah is not valid, you have to make up the rak'ah at the end of the salah. Like this. Now. So, also of the things mentioned, أو بالكلام عمدا, or by way of speaking intentionally. وهذا لحديث زيد بن أركم رضي عنه قال كنا نتكلم في الصلاة. Sahaba said, used to speak in the salah. يكلم الرجل صاحبه يعني وهو إلى جنبه في الصلاة. But they would talk to the person next to them in the salah. نعم. حتى نزلت وقوموا لله قانتين. Surah Al-Baqarah 238. And stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala qanitin, in devotion. فأمرنا بالسكوت ونهينا عن الكلام. أخرجه البخاري ومسلم. It mentioned, so he commanded us to be quiet and prohibited us from speaking. Another situation mentions in another hadith in Sahih Muslim mentioned الحديث معاوية بن حكم السلمي عنه mentioned وسمي قال بين أنا أصلي مع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. It mentioned whilst I was praying with the Prophet Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم إذ عطس رجل من القوم, someone sneezed. فقلت يرحمك الله. So I said, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy upon you. يرحمك الله. فرماني القوم بأبصارهم. The people stoned me with their eyes, with their sight. The way they stared at me, it felt like getting stoned by the eyes. You know, sometimes people look at you, it's piercing, it hurts. Oh. It's uneasy. Imagine everyone's looking at you like in a certain way. It's more severe than words sometimes. فقلت وثق الأمياه. I may be bereaved of the mothers. ما شأنكم تنظرون إلي. What's wrong with you looking at me? فجعلوا يضربون بأيديهم على أفخاذهم. They started to hit their shoulders or their thighs, sorry. الفخذ, the thighs. They're hitting their thighs with their hands. فلما رأيتهم يصمتونني ولكني سكت. When I saw them silencing me, however I was quiet. فلما صلى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فبأبي وهو وأمي. He's like my mother and father. I give my mother and my father ransom for him. ما رأيت معلما قبله ولا بعده أحسن تعليما منه. I never saw a teacher before him nor after him better in teaching him. فوالله ما كهرني ولا ضربني ولا شتمني. He didn't compel me to do anything. He didn't strike me. He didn't curse me. قال إن هذه الصلاة. He said, indeed this salah لا يصلح فيها شيء من كلام الناس. It's not befitting for anything from the speech of the people. إنما هو التسبيح والتكبير وقراءة القرآن. Indeed it is only tasbih, which is subhanallah, wa takbir, Allahu Akbar, and recitation of the Quran. فلا يليق في الصلاة كلاما من كلام البشر غير كلام الصلاة. So it's not befitting within the salah for mankind to say anything from the words of mankind. Rather, there are specific statements, مشروعة في الصلاة, legislated to be said in the salah. ولهذا نتعلم يعني صفة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في الأمر بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر وتعليم الآخرين. We learn ways of commanding good, forbidding the evil, and the methodology of teaching others. No.
If you sneeze yourself, can you still say Alhamdulillah?
نعم. في خلاف. نعم. Also was mentioned وَبِالْقَهْقَهَا. Mama al-qahqaha. Laughing. Not smiling, laughing. If a person laughs in the salah is batil. Now,
What about sometimes you're praying accidentally, but someone might be in front of you and they tread on your head, but they tread on it hard. But the natural reaction, you might just kiss
no,
your
that's
teeth.
not laughing.
But I mean the sound of kissing
No,
your teeth.
restricted to what's mentioned.
Wait.
Now, if it's not mentioned, la. Because qahqah is specific. Because then we'll ask about any sound that a person makes. You see? And that could be a natural reaction, it's not amdan.
Yeah.
It's not intentional. For example, let's say I'm in salah and I'm just deep in thought of the surah I'm reciting, for example. And someone calls my name. And without thinking, I'm like, Naam! And if it's salah. But I wasn't thinking about it, I didn't intend, it just came out. Does that invalidate my salah?
No,
They called me and said, yes, I'm in salah. Like this. I'm like, oof. I just remember I'm in salah. That doesn't break your salah. طيب, how do we know that the speech that's unintentional doesn't break the salah? Nisyan. Also, there's a type of speech that doesn't break the salah. When the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ prayed 2 rak'ah for dhuhr instead of 4, what happened?
Then the Sahaba asked the question if it has been changed.
Nah. And what did he do?
And he completed it and
He completed it with 2 more rak'ah. Now, so some give exception on this basis also. Now, if there was like a need. However, al-awla la yatakallam abadan. Now, one should never speak intentionally. عموما يبطل الصلاة. As for القهقه laughing فهذا بالإجماع. بإجماع الأمة قال ابن حزم اتفقوا أن القهقه تبطل الصلاة أو تبطل الصلاة. نعم. وكذلك ابن منذر نقل الإجماع. وقال الشيخ الإسلام ابن تيمية رحمه الله إن الصلاة تبطل بالقهقه إذا كان فيها أصوات عالية تنافي الخشوع الواجب في الصلاة وفيها من الاستخفاف والتلاعب ما يناقض مقصود الصلاة فأبطلت لذلك لا لكونها كلاما. Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah mentions the salah is invalidated by the laughing if it comes with a voice. Because the voice that is made when laughing, the sound, it nullifies al-khushu' that is wajib. That tranquility in the salah that is wajib. And it shows that one should not be playing and stuff that nullifies the objective of the salah. So it's not that is the reason why the salah is invalidated, not because of the fact that it is speech or sound that comes out. Also, the things that is mentioned بالحركة الكثيرة عرفا المتوالية لغير ضرورة لأنه في الأول ترك ما لا تتم العبادة إلا به وبالأخيرات فعل ما ينهى عنه فيها. So mentioned also abundant movement according to the customers known. What does that mean? If I saw a person praying and they would turn around in circles, for example, هل أقول أنه يصلي? Will I say he's praying? I say he's doing tawaf in his head. Now, لا يصلي أبدا. The person is doing this. So he's doing Pilates. I would say لا أقول أنه يصلي. Now, of a person is walking backwards, walking forwards, walking sideways, لا نقول أنه يصلي. نعم. So هذا يبطل الصلاة. The only time the movement is if it's a necessity. For example, a mother has a child and she's praying and the child is at the edge and it's dangerous and they're going to hurt themselves. They can run, get the child and still be in salah. They'll still be in the salah. That's للضرورة. Now, like some people leave their children crying hysterically, but you can just pick them up. It doesn't have no impact on the salah. Pick up the child. Now,
Ustad, if you leave your phone on the floor and your phone goes off doing salah while you're standing up, can you
with the
reach
sound,
down? Yeah.
you can turn it off.
You can reach down, pick it up, turn it off, put it in your pocket.
Because that affects the khushu' of other people. So the prohibition is less. You're going for the lesser evil. The lesser evil is moving down out of the position that you're in the salah. Is a lesser evil than ruining the khushu' of everyone else. Now, and it mentions the reason why, because one, this abundant movement is leaving off something that has been, that the salah, that the act of worship isn't complete except without it. And that is as-salikeen. Another thing that is mentioned, yukrahu, a lesser degree. So we've gone past that, which nullifies the salah. Now the things that are disliked during the salah. Al-iltifatu fi salati, looking around in the salah. لأن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم سئل عن الالتفات في الصلاة فقال هو اختلاس يختلسه الشيطان من صلاة العبد رواه البخاري. He said, Prophet was asked about turning in the salah and he said, it is اختلاس, like stealing. That the shaitan steals it from the salah of the person. اختلاس, you don't give something its due right. We use اختلاس in أحكام of tajweed. For example, Surah Al-Mulk, you say سنسمه. Someone says سنسمه, you say يختلس. لا يعطي الحروف حقها في مقدار حركة. They don't give the letters due rights and how long it's to be pronounced. So this is called اختلاس. There's some words that you have to say slowly, like وعظ, وعد, يعد, يعظ. You don't say يعظ, لا, يعظ, or ذرأكم, you don't say ذرأكم. You have to say it slower, ذرأكم, like this. This is called اختلاس. This is called اختلاس. So now imagine a person who's looking around in the salah, يختلس من الصلاة, you're stealing from the salah. Because you're not giving your due focus. Then we have yukrahu al-abath. Al-abath is like playing, messing around, playing. As I mentioned, عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم عن أبي ذر قال إذا قام أحدكم من الصلاة فلا يمسح الحصى فإن الرحمة تواجهه. When one of you stands up in the salah, don't move the stones. Don't touch the stones, don't wipe the stones and stuff. Don't always wipe it off your face and these kind of things. Because the rahmah is facing you. Rahmah is being directed towards you. So one should focus in the salah. No. Also, it's disliked that a person puts their hands on their waist. I mentioned نهى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أن يصلي الرجل مختصرا. the Prophet prohibited a person to pray with their hands on their waist. Also was mentioned, disliked tashbik al-asabi', clicking one's fingers. Or, sorry, وَقَرْقَعَهَا, this is, وَفَرْقَعَتُهَا, this is cracking the fingers, but tashbik is to do this. Doing this, stuff like this, the Prophet forbade that in the salah, but not on the, as a prohibition, but as something that is disliked. وَفَرْقَعَتُهَا, cracking the fingers, all of this. They say it's not good for you, but we can't help it. Allah musta'an. Yeah, this again is not good. It's disliked to be done during the salah. Because sometimes I see people praying and they do different weird things. Everyone does different weird things. I see people look like they're flexing and they just do this all the time. You know, bro, what's this guy doing, man?
Just remember you need to stretch.
Yeah, too much. Well, it's like all the time. It's like a certain one, like so it's the same kind of thing. I don't know if you're trying to click something or you're tensing something, or someone's always doing something with their feet.
Yeah.
It's always either their feet or like the shoulders.
A lot of people got arthritis, so a lot of the time with the people that arthritis in the foot, you see them doing that constantly.
Okay, well they may be excused then if you have a condition. No, but when I see young people doing it, Allah musta'an, it's different, man. It's like there's no relaxing in the salah. It's like, come on, relax. It's like they tense their feet as well, like they just do different stuff. You always see people doing different stuff because shaitan comes to them and starts distracts them. No. Also, أن يجلس فيها مقعيا كإقعاء الكلب. For a person to sit like the way and spread out the way that the dog sits. Spread out. And that is basically the way the dog's back legs are. If you sit like that with your back legs flat on the floor and your waist is in between your legs, this is like sitting like the dog. Okay? Because the other thing that's disliked is when you put your forearms flat like the dog as well. The way the dog sits, these are disliked to be done in the salah. Also, facing things that will distract you. So having things within your direction of prayer and your sight that will cause you to be distracted from the salah. You need to remove those things from your vision. أو يدخل فيها وقلبه مشتغل بمدافعة الأخبثين أو بحضرة الطعام يشتهيه لقوله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا صلاة بحضرة طعام ولا هو يدافعه الأخبثان متفق عليه. Also, it's disliked for a person to pray whilst their heart is busy with thinking about food or holding back the need to relieve themselves, to go toilet or pass wind. It's disliked if this is going to distract you or make you lose khushu'. Like if you're desperate to go toilet, then you go toilet and then you pray. But if you feel the need to go toilet, but it's not going to affect your khushu', but you know you're not desperate, then no problem to pray. But let's say you're very hungry and food is just being served and you can see the food there. But if you go and pray and you're really hungry like this, you're going to be thinking about the food. Then it's better you eat something that will suffice you to be able to pray. It's disliked to pray in that state. Now, when we look at the illah, why is it disliked? Because هذا يؤثر في الخشوع. This affects the tranquility in the salah. Now,
When you said to sit like the calf and the elbows,
the forearm, the whole forearm to be flat.
sometimes you see people doing that and then someone actually corrects them in the salah and like moves them. But is that better to do or better to leave?
It's okay, but because it doesn't affect the salah. Because dislike, it's better to wait till after. Because then what happens, sometimes you find people correcting others in the salah, they don't actually have khushu' themselves. You see. So if there's something that's from that which is disliked, لا يؤثر في صحة الصلاة, doesn't affect the correctness of the salah, wait and then teach them after. Teach them after, inshallah is better. Wallahu a'lam. I mentioned that ونهى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أن يفترش الرجل ذراعيه في السجود. That's what I talked about, like the dog when you're on your forearms. Now, then after he mentions Bab Salat al-Tatawwa', the chapter of voluntary acts of Salah, the voluntary Salawat. From them, Salat al-Kusuf, وهو آكدها, is the most affirmed of them, and that's Salat al-Kusuf, the eclipse prayer. And Nabi Sallallahu فعلها وأمر بها. Prophet prayed it and he also commanded others to pray. He mentioned Huma min ayatillah, they are from the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not something that occurs for the death of anyone. Because there was an eclipse at the death of the son of the Prophet Ibrahim, and he mentioned, rather these are from the signs of Allah, they don't occur, the eclipse does not occur to the death or life of anyone. I mentioned تصلى على صفة حديث عائشة عنها, is prayed according to the description of the hadith of Aisha عنها. أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم جهر في صلاة الكسوف في قراءته فصلى 4 ركعات في ركعتين. You do 4 ruku' in 2 rak'ah. So in each rak'ah you do ruku' twice. That is the description of Salat al-Kusuf. So for example, you say Allahu Akbar, you recite Surah Al-Fatiha and you recite a long, lengthy portion of the Quran. Then you go into ruku'. Then you raise from ruku' and you recite a long portion of the Quran. You continue to recite a long portion of the Quran. Then you go into sujood. Then you finish the sajdatain, you come back up for the second rak'ah and you do the same. One, you Fatiha, long portion of the Quran, ruku', up, long portion of the Quran, ruku', then sujood. Up and then back to sujood. Like this. Okay, so you do ruku' 4 times in 2 rak'ah. وأربع سجدات. نعم. متفق عليه. There's also agreed upon Bukhari and Muslim in the description of Khusuf. Then you have Salat al-Witr. Salat al-Witr sunnatun mu'akkada, another affirmed sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. لم يتركها حضرا ولا سفرا. He never left it whether he was resident or traveling. وحث الناس عليه. He also encouraged people to pray Salat al-Witr. وأقله ركعة. ما كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وما كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يزيد في رمضان ولا في غيره على 11 ركعة. The Prophet would not pray more than inside Ramadan or outside Ramadan more than 11 rak'ah. والأفضل, or the time that is prayed as well, from Salat al-Isha until Fajr. The best time is that it's prayed at the end of the night, the last part of the night. That's the best thing to do. وكما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم اجعلوا آخر صلاتكم بالليل وترا. متفق عليه. Make the last salah you do of your night Salat al-Witr. من خاف ألا يقوم من آخر الليل فليوتر أوله ومن طمع أن يقوم آخره فليوتر آخر الليل فإن صلاة آخر الليل مشهودة وذلك أفضل. رواه مسلم. Also, the Prophet had mentioned, whoever fears that they won't be able to pray at the end of the night, then let them make witr at the first part of the night. And whoever hopes that they will get up at the end of the night, then let them perform witr at the end of the night, for indeed the salat at the end of the night is witnessed, and that is what is better. Then you have Salat al-Istisqa, the salah of seeking rain. وصلاة الاستسقاء سنة إذا اضطر الناس لفقد الماء. So it's a sunnah if the people are compelled due to loss of water, a lack of rain. وتفعل كصلاة العيد في الصحراء, is prayed like you pray Salat al-Eid. It would be in an open area. ويخرج إليها متخشعا متذللا متضرعا. that a person, when you leave out for the salah, you should be dressed in a manner that shows you're in need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not wearing fresh clothes, like Eid, you wear your best clothes, like not for Salat al-Kusuf. You kind of look, you make it shown that you're in need of Allah Azza wa Jalla in the way that you dress. And you pray 2 rak'ah. Then at the end, you do 1 khutbah, just like Salat al-Eid. ويكثر فيها الاستغفار وقراءة الآيات التي فيها الأمر به ويلح في الدعاء ولا يستبطئ الإجابة. He mentions, and a person, you make abundant istighfar within it, and reading the ayat that contain the command of seeking forgiveness. ويلح في الدعاء, and you're persistent in dua. ولا يستبطئ الإجابة, and you do not rush the answer. وينبغي قبل الخروج إليها فعل الأسباب التي تدفع الشر وتنزل الرحمة. It mentions before you leave out to pray the Salat al-Istisqa, then one should do the actions that will bring about, that are from the means of repelling evil and for the rahmah of Allah to descend upon the people. And of those things that are mentioned is al-istighfar, seeking of forgiveness, at-tawbah, seeking, repenting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, al-khuruj min al-madalim, leaving off actions of oppression, wa al-ihsan fil khalq ila al-khalq, extending goodness towards the creation, وغيرها من الأسباب التي جعلها الله جالبة للرحمة دافعة للنقمة والله أعلم. I mentioned, and other than this, from the things that will bring about Allah's mercy and repel the test and calamity. Now, then we have the times that the salah is prohibited. وأوقات النهي عن النوافل المطلقة. The general times of prohibition is من الفجر إلى أن ترتفع الشمس قيد رمح. It mentions the first is the time of Fajr, after Fajr until the sun rises the level of an arrow. This is of the times that is prohibited. Right? So until the time of duha. When the time of duha enters, then one can pray. And that's usually about 15 minutes after sunrise. It's about 15 minutes approximately after sunrise, you can pray Salat al-Duha. And then you have from Salat al-Asr until Salat al-Maghrib. Between Asr and Maghrib is a time of prohibition. ومن قيام الشمس في كبد السماء إلى أن تزول والله أعلم.
So if someone takes it as their view and they come to the masjid after Asr and they just say, I'm just going to sit down.
No, you pray Tahiyat al-Masjid. The Dawat al-Asbab, the salat that have reasons, they are permitted in the times that are prohibited. No. So any salat has a reason, it's permissible in the times that are prohibited. So istikhara, 2 rak'ah after making wudu, بين الأذان والإقامة. No.
You said 15 minutes.
Roughly.
Is that set in stone because see brothers
Roughly.
fighting over that?
Roughly.
So 10 minutes is fine.
No. Not less than that.
Minimum 15.
Yeah, roughly minimum 15 minutes. It's better to be safe. Al-ahwat. Some even wait longer. No. One shouldn't rush, so take your time. It's not worth being of those who pray at a time that's prohibited when the sun's rising between the horns of shaitan. Yeah. No.
One brother argued, he said in Masjid An-Nabawi, they do 12 minutes after sunrise. That's what he was claiming.
Allah.
I heard 10 minutes.
Yes, if the whole circle of the sun is out,
If they've checked it and that's the time they found, but I've heard, I mentioned about 15 minutes. No. But if a person has measured and seen that this is the time roughly it takes, then khalas. No. But these become like silly things to fight over. To be honest, people, Allah musta'an, they fight over things, it doesn't make sense why they're fighting. Like, there's no benefit at all. So see, matters that are ijtihadiyya, there's room for difference. No, it's not set in stone, it's not black and white, one is to be cautious. No. طيب. We'll stop here today, inshallah ta'ala. So as I've mentioned, there's not going to be class until the week of the 24th of June. There'll be the Sirah class tomorrow, and that'll be the last class until the last week of the month, inshallah ta'ala. اللهم صل وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. جزاكم الله خيرا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. آمين وإليكم. نعم إن شاء الله.